Everybody ran out the room. The CPS worker ran out the room. The psychologist ran out the room. The nurse ran out the room. Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. So today I will be talking about the story of Latoya Ammons and the crazy and spooky stuff that happened in her home and with her family. If you don't believe in the spiritual realm, you might have a problem processing this story. However, these events have been documented by a psychologist, a nurse, and law enforcement. This story is out of this world, literally. Like when I was researching this story, I had chills. This story is so crazy, it just has to be told. If you are interested in hearing this story while I show you how to do these 3 hairstyles right here, then stick around and let's get right into it.
This is the woman who lived in the House of Horrors with her 3 children before Zach Bagans bought it.
Latoya Ammons was a single mom of 3 children. She had a 7-year-old boy, a 9-year-old boy, and a 12-year-old. The names of the children were not released because they were minors at the time and was to protect their identities. So I don't have the names of the children.
It's your first look inside the house known as the Portal to Hell, a place where demons supposedly wrought havoc with a helpless family.
Latoya Ammons moved into a house in Gary, Indiana, which was very affordable for her and her mother.
Do you believe that house is possessed by demons?
I do. I feel that it's something very bad going on in that house.
Her mother's name was Rosa. So when Latoya saw the house, she felt that it would be a good place for her to rent out because it had enough rooms for her children, herself, and her mother. When she first observed the house, she didn't notice anything strange. Then they moved into the house. And the first strange thing that they noticed was that there was a swarm of black flies in front of the house. Guys, and no matter how many times they killed the flies, they always came back. Even in the middle of winter, in December, no matter how many times they would kill these flies, the next day they would wake up, there would be a whole other swarm of flies. They checked the porch, they checked around the front of the house, around the back. There was nothing that was causing the flies to return. There was no dead animals. There was no carcass. There was nothing spoiled that would explain why these black flies were always present in the porch. And they also had a screen door. Somehow the flies would go past the screen door, and they just could not explain why these black flies would not just go away. This was the first weird thing that happened in this house. The second weird thing that happened in this house is one night, Rosa, the grandmother, heard footsteps. She checked the children's room. Everybody was asleep. These footsteps could not be explained because there was no one walking in the house when she went to look. She found wet boot prints right in the middle of the living room. She went and checked the doors. The doors were locked. There was no one that came in the house, and there was no one that left the house. That was something that was really weird that she couldn't explain. A few months later, Rosa was sleeping, and suddenly in the middle of her sleep, she felt hands choking her. However, she could not see who was choking her because it was an invisible force. Eventually, the hands let her go. By then, Rosa started realizing something weird is happening in the house. And Latoya noticed that as well because she did hear the noises, the footsteps at night. She heard those, so she knew that, okay, something is not right. something weird is happening in the house. Her children sometimes would speak in weird languages, and they would shake their head violently, and their voice would change to a deep voice.
We've waited 5 months. It sounded like something dead.
It just happened sporadically, and it was really strange. The whole family was freaked out. So they decided that they needed some sort of intervention. They started calling churches, but a lot of the churches that they called did not believe their story. So they kind of felt helpless because they needed some help. But however, it's either people from the churches didn't believe their story or they didn't want to help them. Finally, Latoya was able to get in contact with the church, and they were willing to help her. They told her to clean her home with ammonia and bleach and use oil and make crosses around the house, put crosses of oil on their children, and also burn sage around the house. So Latoya did what the church told her, but it didn't really help. Latoya and Rosa are feeling helpless. There's times that Latoya would feel something overtake her. Rosa said that Latoya acted like she was possessed by something. The third thing that happened that was really over the top is one day Latoya and the family came home after a funeral, and they were accompanied by some friends. The friends decided to stay over just to comfort them because it was a loved one of Latoya that passed away. It's part of some people's culture for friends to come over the home and to sleep over when you lose a loved one, just to provide comfort. Sometimes they stay for a night or a few days while you're mourning. So these friends stayed over the home. During the night, Latoya went to check on her 12-year-old daughter. When she went in the room, she saw her daughter levitating, okay? And her daughter was unconscious. She screamed her head off, guys. Who wouldn't scream their head off if you saw somebody levitating like something out of the Poltergeist movie or something out of The Exorcist? She screamed so loud that Rosa and everybody came running, and they saw her daughter levitating. Everybody was freaked out. Her friends who were staying over started praying. Latoya started praying. Rosa started praying. They prayed and prayed until her daughter's body started going back down into the bed. And guys, I'm getting chills. That is so crazy. They consulted a clairvoyant. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that right. And when the clairvoyant came into the home, she said that the home was possessed by 200 demons. She told Latoya and Rosa that the best thing that they should do is move out of the home. At this time, Latoya was strapped for cash. Her finances weren't at a place where she could just pick up and move out. That definitely was not an option for the family. So they had to look into, okay, what else can be done? Because we cannot move out. They couldn't afford to move out of the home. Latoya's son would sometimes speak to someone who was not visible, and they would talk about death. She never saw who he was speaking to, but sometimes she would hear a voice and there was nobody there. And on top of that, one time her son was thrown across the room and no one threw him. His body just flew across the room as if someone had thrown him. The family would hear sounds going up and down the stairs of the basement, and there was nobody there. It used to happen a lot at night. The children missed a lot of school because they would be kept up at night by all these creepy sounds and things happening in the house. Latoya consulted the family pediatrician, and she told him about the things that the family was experiencing. After she told the pediatrician what was happening, he was like, he had never heard something like this before. So his first conclusion is that she and the family were having delusions and hallucinations. He ended up calling CPS because he felt like, okay, this is not normal. This family, they're obviously crazy. Something is going on with them. Basically, he thought the family was nuts. That's when CPS became involved. When CPS came into the home, she did notice that the children were acting strange. The younger son told the older son that he wanted to kill him. He put his hands around the older boy's neck and started to choke him. And they literally had to pry his hands off of his brother's neck. The CPS worker decided to have the children and the mom go see a psychologist. The focus was on the 7-year-old because he was talking a lot to an unseen person. The children actually were all acting weird. They would walk around the house smiling with these evil smiles, and they would be talking in deep voices that sounded unnatural. The CPS worker took them to a psychologist for a mental health evaluation. During the evaluation, the 7-year-old boy started acting really strange. He had that creepy grin and started speaking in a weird language that sounded like tongues. The psychologist and the nurse were trying to ask him questions. The CPS worker was in the room. The grandmother, Rosa, was in the room, as well as the mother. So during this evaluation, guys, all of a sudden, the 7-year-old boy glided across the room while holding his grandmother's hands. And it was like an unnatural glide, not like a moonwalk, but like a glide. He glided across the room and he walked backwards up the wall and up the ceiling and jumped down right in front of his grandmother. Everybody ran out the room. The CPS worker ran out the room. The psychologist ran out the room. The nurse ran out the room. Everybody was so creeped out that they ran out the room. Guys, and if I was there, I would have ran out the room myself, because that is not natural. Who in the world can walk up a wall backwards onto the ceiling and jump off, especially a 7-year-old? In the notes, the CPS worker said it wasn't something like an acrobat could do. It was like an unnatural movement. The CPS worker is freaked out. When she writes her report, they decided to take the children away, okay, because they couldn't explain what was going on. At this point, they just chalked it up to, okay, something's wrong with this family. Maybe they need some mental health care. I mean, they basically couldn't explain it. So they just took away the children and they placed the children in the care of her brother. The children were away for about 6 months. And during that time, the mom had someone come into the home and pray in the home, and they told her to take her Bible and read her Bible in the home and walk around and read. And eventually things started calming down a bit. All the spooky stuff that happened with the children did not stop until the family moved out of the home. In the CPS worker notes, it said that the family is no longer fixated on religion to help treat the concerns. So as a result, they closed the case. But I feel like the family probably just told them that so that she was able to get her kids back, because during an interview, a television interview, the mom said no one was able to help her. The psychologist was not able to help her. And she credited God as being the only person who was able to help her. And me being a believer of the spiritual realm, I really do believe that it had to be only God that helped her, because she called on churches, she called on psychologists. Even seeing what they saw with the child walking on the ceiling, walking up a wall and down the ceiling, they still didn't provide a solution. She credited her prayers to God as being able to help her. A documentary was done by someone called Zach Baggins. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that right, but he was able to speak to the uncle who watched the children while they were taken away from the mom. And he said that when they were in his home, strange things were happening with the children. Basically, he said that one of them would start speaking in some weird language and look like they were in a trance, right? And then the next one started speaking in a weird language, like in a deep voice, like they were possessed. And then the next one would start doing it, and it would just like go from one to the other in sequence. And they would sometimes say violent things. It was just crazy. So it's like even when they weren't with the mom, there was some crazy things that were still happening with the children. Zach Baggins, he did a documentary. That's a whole nother can of worms, guys, because I watched that documentary. If you want to know what else happened, go watch that documentary, Demon House, because other things happened too. They had strange deaths. Strange things happened to Zach Baggins. The police officers were also involved. They dug up underneath the home to see if there were bodies underneath the home, if there was a grave underneath the home that was causing all the things that were happening, and they didn't find anything. The CPS worker who saw the boy walk up the wall, she was traumatized to the point where she had to get mental health care, and she moved away. A lot of the police officers who saw the crazy things that happened in the home, a lot of them quit their jobs, guys, and moved away after seeing what they saw. Some of the things I may not have covered, but if you are interested, you could look up the story yourself and look up the documentary. It's called Demon House, and it will go into more detail as to what occurred in the home. I really do believe in the spiritual realm. I know some people don't believe in that. Do you believe that this family suffered from delusions? Do you believe the psychologist had a delusion? The nurse who saw the child walk up the wall, do you think she had a delusion? As well as a CPS worker? Because to this day, these people have been affected. As I said, a lot of them moved away after they saw these crazy things. The CPS worker said that this has affected her for the rest of her life, and she has to see a psychiatrist as a result of what she saw. Guys, I don't play with certain things. I personally believe in the power of the name of Jesus. Latoya must have called on the name of Jesus, and this is why these events stopped. So guys, what are your thoughts? I'm so glad I'm done with this story. I will not be telling this story again. Do you believe this story? Do you not believe this story? Do you feel like everybody in the story had delusions? Let me know, guys. I would love to hear what you think. So guys, that's it for today. Thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to subscribe if you haven't done that already. I will see you in the next video. Have a blessed one. Bye.